This is an update on working on the Irwin 38 1986. Was doing some sanding on the bottom and noticed that the heads of the gudgeon and pintle assembly were somewhat corroded. So we decided to take the bolts out, and this is what we found. Here are the bolts that I took out. Let me hold them up so you can see them better. One bolt came out whole. This other bolt here is quite corroded. You can see it's necked down quite a bit and it was loose. And the other bolt completely corroded off. The head just dropped out. So the bolts have to come completely out and able to, and also I had some play in the block assembly. Here's the block assembly that mounts around the rudder post and slides inside this gudgeon. And I noticed I had some play when I pushed the rudder laterally. It would clunk back and forth. So at that point in time I realized that the center was worn and it had to come apart. So what was done was to remove the bolts that I just showed you from those holes. There was 3, and then the rudder had to be dropped about 2 inches so you can clear this. Once I dropped the rudder, that's just unhooking, taking some set screws out of one of the upper pillow blocks inside the cabin, and then the rudder slid down. I put some blocking in there so it wouldn't drop down too far, and at that point in time I was able to rotate this in this direction, and the plastic blocks were in there, and I used a block of wood with a hammer and drove this assembly straight out this way, and now I have this assembly out, and this assembly looks good. It's all stainless steel, and that's a hole for lubrication for water. The rest of it looks good. It will be cleaned up, sanded and cleaned, and our next attempt here now is we're going to take this bearing surface, and what they did was it was in 2 halves. It was put together like this around the rudder post, and of course slid over the strap that I just showed you. And it was strange what they did. They used you could see it, it's a circular, but they also packed it with some polyester to put a flat on the backside, so I guess it would sit flat towards the rudder side. Well, that's all got to come off, and the inside is what's worn, and it looks as if you look very closely, it looks as if the 2 surfaces, the top surface here and this surface here, is where the rudder rubs, and then they put a material in between. You can see that material in between. I'm not quite sure why they did that, instead of making the complete piece one solid piece all the way across. So what's going to happen is I'm going to machine this a new piece out of plastic, probably Delrin, or I have to see what plastics I have, and reinsert it, make it the right size so it has clearance, so it's not too tight, so the rudder will turn, and then we'll put this assembly together. I know there's been stuff posted about rudders and how to drop the rudder. This rudder wasn't that difficult to drop. Let me step away. It was pretty easy once I loosened the, here we go. Once I loosened the set screw on the pillow block bearing, the rudder slid down. I left the cables hooked up because there was enough clearance, enough room for the cables to slide down without unhooking anything. I'm just trying to minimize the amount taking it apart. So this will be cleaned up, a new bearing will be made, and that will be a later video, and this assembly will put back together. So that's it for now.